been told to rest more, but no one ever taught you how to rest well. You've heard that rest is important, but for some reason when you try to slow down, your mind speeds up. You clear your calendar, you turn off notifications, you sit in silence, and suddenly you're more anxious than before. Because the truth is, rest is not something you automatically receive just because you stop doing things. Rest is something you reclaim, gently but deliberately, especially if life has trained you to equate rest with guilt, danger, or wasted time. To reclaim rest is to tell a different story, a story where your worth is not tied to your output, where stillness is not shameful, where peace is not a prize you earn, but a place you return to. And for many of us, that's a radical re-education. Because from a young age, we were taught to be efficient, productive, responsive. Hustle was rewarded. Stillness was criticized. Even boredom was pathologized. So when we finally have space to rest, it doesn't feel natural. It feels foreign. Rest becomes a skill we never learned. And that's what this episode is here for. This isn't just about sleep. This is about a nervous system that never got the message that it's allowed to soften. It's about a body that's been bracing for years, living in high alert mode, moving from one task to the next, one expectation to the next, one emotional fire to the next, without ever stopping to ask, what would rest even feel like if I trusted it? Because here's the truth. Rest is more than a nap or a night off. It's the absence of pressure in your body. It's the loosening of your jaw, the unclenching of your stomach, the ability to sit still without mentally rehearsing your to-do list. Rest is a state of inner permission. It's not just the absence of work, it's the presence of safety. And when your system doesn't feel safe, rest is impossible. So reclaiming rest means learning to build safety from the inside out. It means giving your nervous system new cues, new rhythms, new anchors. It means choosing moments of restoration even when nothing external demands it. It means breaking the pattern that says, I can only rest when I've done enough, and replacing it with, rest is the foundation that allows me to do anything at all. This process doesn't start with sleep hygiene. It starts with soul honesty, with asking, why do I feel like I have to earn the right to slow down? It starts with noticing how you rush even when there's no rush, how you feel more valuable when you're exhausted, how you judge yourself for needing a break. These aren't flaws, they're clues. They point to where rest was stolen from you, by culture, by family, by survival itself. And now, as an adult, you have the opportunity to take it back. Not through rebellion, through restoration. You reclaim rest not by forcing stillness, but by learning to trust it. By making room for pauses that are not immediately productive. By building rhythms that don't leave you breathless. By surrounding yourself with signals that say, you are not in danger. You don't have to earn being here. You are allowed to rest. And when you begin to live that way, not just sleep at night, but rest during the day, everything changes. Your clarity, your creativity, your connection to others, your sleep, yes, but more importantly, your sense of self. Because in a world that keeps telling you to do more, choosing rest is not laziness. It's a radical act of reclaiming your humanity. Nervous system literacy, understanding the biology of ease. Most people think of rest as something you should do, like a task on a list. Get 8 hours of sleep, take breaks, meditate. But rest is not a cognitive decision. It's a biological state. And unless your nervous system feels safe, no amount of trying will get you there. That's why understanding your nervous system literacy, is one of the most powerful things you can give yourself. Not because it fixes everything overnight, but because it helps you stop blaming yourself for something your body never learned how to do. Let's start with something simple but profound. Your nervous system has one job: to keep you alive. That's it. Not to make you happy, not to make you productive, not to help you sleep, just to keep you alive. And it does this by constantly scanning for threat. Every moment of every day, without you even knowing, it asks, am I safe? If the answer is yes, your system allows relaxation, digestion, connection, and rest. But if the answer is no, it activates your survival mode: fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And here's the hard part. Your nervous system doesn't just respond to what's happening now, it responds to what's familiar. So if stress, chaos, or hypervigilance were your baseline growing up, then calm may feel unsafe, stillness may feel wrong, ease may feel like letting your guard down. That's not dysfunction. That's your biology trying to protect you with outdated data. This is why just relax never works. Because if your nervous system has equated rest with risk, no amount of logic will override that. You might be lying in bed with the lights off, essential oils diffusing, meditation music playing, but if your nervous system doesn't trust that it's safe, rest won't come. So the first step in reclaiming rest is not forcing your body to calm down. It's listening to your body's story, asking, what environments did it learn to survive in? What patterns did it adapt to? What signals does it still interpret as threat, even if they're no longer dangerous? And then the real work begins. Slowly, gently introducing new signals. Not all at once, not in ways that feel fake, but in ways that help your nervous system rewire what it believes about safety. This could look like taking 3 slow breaths before you answer a text message, like unclenching your jaw every time you notice it's tight, like letting your shoulders drop when you sit down, like speaking to yourself out loud in a kind tone, especially when you mess up. These are not hacks. These are safety cues. Because your nervous system isn't healed through information, it's healed through experience. Repeated, consistent experience that tells your body, you're not in danger, you don't have to brace right now. It's also important to know this. There's no such thing as a broken nervous system. There are only adaptive ones. And yours, no matter how wired, tired, or tightly coiled it feels, is doing its best to keep you alive based on what it learned. That's something to honor, not shame. Your vigilance kept you safe. Your tension helped you cope. Your restlessness was intelligence. But now, you're safe enough to choose something different. And this is the invitation, not to judge your body for resisting rest, but to partner with it. To stop trying to force relaxation and start learning what safety actually feels like. Not just conceptually, but physically, tangibly, viscerally. Because once your nervous system learns that it can downshift without danger, sleep becomes less of a fight and more of a reflex. Ease becomes not something you chase, but something you remember. And it's in that remembering that healing begins. From fight mode to flow mode, redesigning your daily inputs. By the time most people get into bed, their body has already made a decision. Rest is not available. Not because they didn't want it, but because the day they just lived trained their system to stay on guard. From the moment they opened their eyes, they were thrown into fight mode. Alarms, notifications, rushed routines, multitasking, deadlines, stimulus stacked on stimulus, pressure layered on pressure, and no space to breathe in between. And then they wonder why they can't sleep. But sleep isn't an event, it's a result, a downstream effect of how your system has been wired throughout the day. Which means, if you want to sleep at night, you have to start by protecting your inputs during the day. Let's take a closer look. You wake up and the first thing you check is your phone. Immediately, your brain is bombarded with messages, headlines, schedules, dopamine hits, and cortisol spikes. Before you've even had water, you've told your body, be alert, be fast, be ready. You rush through the morning, maybe skipping breakfast, maybe downing caffeine on an empty stomach, maybe driving in traffic while checking emails, and every part of that says, we're behind, we're in danger, go faster. Then comes work, meetings, tasks, more coffee, screens, notifications, scrolling, and lunch, if you even eat, is more of a refuel than a pause. You finish the day wired, tense, overstimulated. So when the evening comes, your system is still looking for relief, but you don't get it. Instead, you jump into chores, emails, maybe doom scrolling to numb out. And then somewhere around 11 p.m., you decide it's time to relax. But your body's like, relax? After that? This isn't judgment, this is awareness. Because most of us aren't trying to sabotage our sleep. We're just living in a world that rewards urgency and penalizes stillness. A world that tells you to be constantly available, constantly achieving, constantly responding. So of course your system stays in fight mode. That's what it's been trained to do. So how do we shift from fight mode to flow mode? We start by rewriting the day. Not with perfection, with intention. In the morning, instead of reaching for your phone, you reach for your breath. 3 slow inhales, 3 full exhales. That's it. Just to tell your system, we're not behind. We're allowed to arrive slowly. You create gaps between tasks. 5 minutes where you don't check anything. You just pause. Maybe look out a window. Maybe stretch. Not to be productive, but to reset your state. You eat meals sitting down, without screens, with music or silence. You chew, you taste, you come home to your body, bite by bite. You schedule transitions, not just meetings. Instead of going straight from work to home responsibilities, you build a bridge, a short walk, a shower, a song, something that tells your body, we're shifting now. And you reclaim your evenings, not with rigid rules, but with boundaries that whisper, this time is mine. You dim the lights, you lower the volume, you let your nervous system descend slowly like a plane landing gently instead of crashing into the night. These aren't luxuries, they're necessities, because your body doesn't need more hacks, it needs rhythm, predictability, cues that say, the threat is over, you're allowed to come down. Flow mode isn't passive, it's intentional. It's built moment by moment, breath by breath, in the choices you make when no one is watching. And here's the beauty. You don't have to redesign your whole life overnight. You just start by noticing, where am I pushing? Where am I rushing? Where am I bracing? Then you choose one place, just one, to slow down. Not because slowing down is easy, but because you're done living in fight mode when you're not at war. Rest is not sleep, what you really need at 2 p.m. and why it matters at 2 a.m. Let's get something straight. Rest and sleep are not the same thing. Sleep is biological. Rest is spiritual. Sleep is when your body shuts down to repair itself. Rest is when your soul exhales. And here's the kicker. If you never rest during the day, your body will start demanding it at night. Not always through sleep, but through shutdown, through burnout, through insomnia that isn't about overactivation, but unmet stillness. We live in a culture that only respects one kind of pause, sleep. Because it's functional, it helps you reset so you can get back to work. But rest Rest doesn't produce. Rest doesn't hustle. Rest doesn't come with metrics. And because of that, most people skip it entirely. You can be sleeping 8 hours a night and still feel exhausted. Why? Because you haven't truly rested in weeks, maybe months, maybe years. Your body gets sleep, but your spirit gets nothing. You push through your day, task after task, errand after errand, maybe with music playing in the background, maybe a podcast in your ears, maybe caffeine in your veins. But at no point do you stop and let yourself arrive. No moment to sit without input, no silence, no space to feel the in-between. And then when the sun sets and the house quiets and the emails stop, your body panics. Because now, and only now, do you hear the parts of yourself you've been ignoring. This is why rest is so important at 2 p.m. Not a nap. A pause. A breath. A check-in. A walk without your phone. A quiet cup of tea without distraction. Something that tells your body, we don't have to wait until we collapse to receive care. When you build moments of rest into your day, sleep becomes less urgent. It's not the only opportunity your body has to shut down. It's part of a larger rhythm, not the desperate gasp at the end of a marathon. But when you don't rest during the day, your nervous system doesn't trust you. So it stays on alert, it scans, it resists, and when you lie in bed, it doesn't believe you're finally ready to let go. Because all day, you didn't let go of anything. So how do you change this? You start by giving yourself permission to be still, before you're done with everything, before you've earned it, before everything is perfect. You let rest happen in the middle of things, not just at the end. That might mean sitting in your car for 2 extra minutes before walking into the house. Letting the silence wrap around you before stepping back into responsibility. It might mean walking without earbuds, hearing the birds, the breeze, your own breath. It might mean a 5-minute stretch where you're not multitasking, not tracking time, not rushing through. It might mean journaling, not for clarity, but just to let what's inside come out. And it might mean nothing at all, but sitting in a chair with your eyes closed, not to sleep, but to be with yourself. The more you do this, the more you normalize non-productive stillness, the less you need sleep to carry the full weight of your restoration. Sleep becomes sleep again, not therapy, not relief, not the only escape you have. It becomes part of a fuller rhythm of recovery that starts while the sun is still up. Because when your body learns it will be tended to before it breaks, it doesn't fight rest, it welcomes it. And that, more than any supplement, any app, any hack, is what your sleep has been waiting for. Protecting the edges, why mornings and evenings matter most. You don't need to fix your entire day to reclaim your rest. You just need to protect the edges, the beginning and the end. The moments where your nervous system is most impressionable, most open, most in need of direction. Mornings and evenings are your anchors. If you get those right, or at least intentional, everything in between becomes more manageable. Let's start with the morning. Most people wake up into a fight. The alarm blares, the phone glows, the thoughts rush in. What needs to be done? Who needs you? What you forgot? What's coming? Before you even stand up, your cortisol spikes. And that sets the tone, not just for your mood, but for your entire nervous system. You start the day in reaction rather than intention. But imagine this instead. You wake up, and for the first 3 minutes, you do nothing. No scrolling, no fixing, no thinking ahead, just breath. Just stillness, maybe a stretch, maybe a whispered reminder to yourself, I don't need to rush into this day, I can step into it. This doesn't have to be a long ritual. It doesn't have to involve green juice, yoga, or perfect lighting. It just has to involve you, being with yourself, before the world starts demanding pieces of you. You can build it slowly, one layer at a time. Wake up 5 minutes earlier, sit by a window, write down one thing you're grateful for. Not to be positive, but to be present. Make your first voice of the day your own, not someone else's. Because when you start your day with grounded energy, your nervous system carries that tone. It remembers how to return to it. And that makes every challenge, every stressor, every task feel a little less like a threat and a little more like a choice. Now let's talk about the other edge, the evening. This is where most people crash, not rest. They scroll until their eyes burn. They binge until their brain checks out. They finally get quiet, not because they chose to, but because their system gave out. And then they crawl into bed and hope sleep saves them. But sleep can't replace what you skipped, a soft ending. You need an emotional dimmer switch, a way to cue your nervous system that the day is winding down, that the tension is no longer needed, that your guard can drop. This doesn't mean perfection, it means pattern. Maybe you light a candle after dinner. Maybe you put your phone away 1 hour before bed. Maybe you play one song that signals, the world can wait, I'm closing now. Maybe you change into soft clothes, not just for comfort, but as a sensory reminder, I am no longer performing, I am home. These rituals matter, not because they're magic, but because they're messengers. They tell your nervous system, we are safe, you can soften now. And when your system receives that message enough times, sleep stops feeling like a cliff you fall off. It becomes a path you walk, slowly, gently, consistently. Protecting the edges isn't about controlling your day. It's about bookending it with care. About choosing how you enter and exit, not just physically, but emotionally. About reclaiming 2 moments that are yours, even if the middle gets messy. Because if you begin in calm and end in calm, your body starts to believe that calm is available. And that belief becomes the foundation for rest. Designing environments that whisper safety to your body is always listening. Not just to your thoughts, but to your surroundings. The color of the walls, the texture of the sheets, the quality of the air, the lighting, the noise, the layout, all of it. Every element in your environment sends a message to your nervous system. This is safe, or this is not. And most of the time, that message is unconscious. You don't notice it, but your body does, and it responds accordingly. It either softens or stays on guard. This is why designing your environment matters. Not for aesthetics, for safety, for rest, for sleep. Because your external world becomes your internal reality. And if your space constantly tells your body to be alert, to brace, to rush, no amount of self-care will override that. Let's start with light. Most modern homes are overlit. Bright white bulbs, harsh LEDs, overhead lighting that mimics the intensity of an operating room. But your nervous system wasn't designed for that. It was designed for firelight, for moonlight, for the soft fading of sun at dusk. So when you flood your home with artificial brightness at night, your body gets confused. It stays in daytime mode. Cortisol stays high, melatonin stays suppressed. You stay wired even if your mind is tired. So try this. In the evening, dim everything. Use warm-toned bulbs, lamps instead of overheads. Candles if it feels right. Let your space mimic the sun's descent. Your nervous system will follow. Now let's talk about sound. Noise is a constant trigger. Not just loudness, but unpredictability. Sirens, alarms, TV in the background, phones buzzing. These all tell your body, Be ready, stay alert. But sound can also soothe. Think about it, a crackling fireplace, rain on the roof, gentle instrumental music. Even silence, intentional, uninterrupted silence, can be healing. So notice what your space sounds like and ask, is this helping me soften or keeping me tense? Then choose one sound to remove and one sound to add. Maybe you close a window to block traffic. Maybe you play ambient music as you cook. Maybe you turn off the TV during dinner. Small shifts, big difference. Next, clutter. Clutter isn't just visual, it's energetic. It tells your body there's more to do, more to manage, more to fix. When every surface is covered, every drawer is jammed, every corner holds postponed decisions, your nervous system gets overwhelmed. It doesn't know where to land. This doesn't mean minimalism. It means intentionality. Keep what you love, store what you need, remove what screams for attention. Let your space breathe, so your body can too. Then there's scent. Smell is the fastest way to shift your state. It bypasses language and hits the limbic system, the emotional core of your brain. So if you've never used scent intentionally, start now. Lavender for calm, eucalyptus for clarity, vanilla for comfort, cedarwood for grounding. Whatever speaks to your nervous system, not just what's trendy, but what feels like home. Touch matters too. Soft blankets, cozy clothes, natural fabrics, smooth textures, weighted pillows, bare feet on warm wood. Your skin is an access point to your safety response. The more comfort it receives, the more signals your brain gets. I don't need to brace, I can relax. And finally, movement flow. How does your space move you? Is the path clear from bed to bathroom? Is your workspace separate from your rest space? Is your kitchen a place of stress or nourishment? You don't need a mansion, you need mindfulness. Every room doesn't have to be perfect, but every room can have one spot that invites peace. One corner that says, you're allowed to exhale here. Because when your environment whispers safety, your body starts to believe it. When the lights dim, the sounds soften, the air clears, the surface is calm, your system gets the message. You're not in danger. You can let go. And that letting go, that unbracing, is the beginning of real rest. Not escape, not shutdown, but soft presence in a space that finally says, welcome home. From sleep hygiene to sleep sovereignty. Sleep hygiene is a beautiful concept. In theory, it gives you a checklist, a routine, a structure to follow. Avoid screens. Keep a consistent bedtime. Don't drink caffeine late. Make your bedroom dark and cool. All great advice, all grounded in research. But here's the thing. You can do everything on the sleep hygiene checklist and still feel restless, still wake up tired, still feel like sleep is something you chase, not something that greets you. Why? Because sleep hygiene is not enough without sleep sovereignty. Sovereignty is about ownership. It's about reclaiming your right to rest, not just biologically, but emotionally, socially, spiritually. It's the difference between managing your sleep and honoring it, between controlling your sleep and trusting it. Most of us have been taught to see sleep as a tool, something we optimize so we can perform better during the day. Sleep becomes a servant of productivity, a necessary evil, a checkpoint, something we squeeze in between everything else. And so, even when we sleep, we don't really rest, because we're still in service to the same engine that exhausts us. Sleep sovereignty flips the script. It says, my rest is not a means to an end. It's an end in itself. It says, I don't owe anyone an explanation for why I need to go to bed early. It says, I protect my rest time like I protect my most sacred commitments, because it is one. Sleep sovereignty means you stop negotiating your need for rest. You stop apologizing for it. You stop viewing it as a luxury or a treat or something you'll get to when everything else is done. It becomes a non-negotiable. Not because you're selfish, but because you're sovereign. And in this sovereignty, something powerful happens. Your sleep stops being fragile. It stops being something you anxiously guard. It becomes something you flow into, something that's supported by how you live, not just how you sleep. Because real rest isn't built at bedtime. It's built by the choices you make throughout the day, the boundaries you hold, the way you say no, the way you move through the world without betraying your own pace. It's built by your willingness to disappoint others before you abandon yourself. It's built by how you parent your nervous system. How you say, I know you're tired, I know you're scared, but you are safe now, and I've got you. That's sovereignty. And it changes everything. You're no longer chasing tips, you're creating rhythm. You're no longer fearing sleeplessness, you're trusting restoration. You're no longer outsourcing your rest to apps, routines, or rules. You're reclaiming it as your own. And that reclamation, that inner stance, that is what lets your body finally let go. Not because you hacked your sleep, but because you remembered. Rest was never something you had to earn. It was always yours to protect. You made it. And not just through this episode, but through years, maybe decades, of pushing through fatigue, of surviving on autopilot, of thinking rest was a reward you had to earn instead of a birthright you never lost. And if no one has told you lately, I'm proud of you, not because you've done enough, but because you're starting to remember that you already are enough. And enoughness does not need to prove. It needs to pause, to breathe, to be. So tonight, or whenever you hear this, I want to leave you with one question. What would it feel like if rest wasn't something you had to fight for anymore? What would change if your day was designed not just for efficiency, but for ease? What would shift if your home, your habits, your language, your light, all conspired to tell your nervous system, you're safe now? And what if sleep wasn't a struggle to win, but a softness you return to? Because that's the invitation, not to fix yourself, but to befriend yourself, not to force rest, but to receive it. So if this episode stirred something in you, a longing, a grief, a hope, hold that gently. Let it move in its own time. And know this, every time you choose presence over pressure, every time you pause instead of push, every time you soften when the world tells you to tense, you are building a life that invites sleep, not just survives it. If this conversation spoke to your heart, I'd love for you to share it with someone who needs that same permission. Leave a review. Subscribe if you haven't. It helps more than you know. And if you want to go deeper, you'll find all the resources in the show notes. But most of all, give yourself permission to do the thing your soul's been whispering about for years now. Rest. Not tomorrow, not when you're done, but now. Because this moment right here is worthy of your softness. And so are you.